What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. It's Joanna here, founder and CEO of Supwell. Today we're diving into the topic of running shoe drop and specifically whether or not this metric is still relevant. Now, we're in a world of high stacked max cushion shoes where there's tons of rockers and tech jammed into shoes, but running shoe brands still list drop up there as one of those most important numbers on their website. And I've seen lots of runners recently, specifically on Reddit, asking about how to interpret drop. And we had a commenter here on the channel, Curiosities, shout out to you, ask about if I could do a video about how drop changes running mechanics and our experience with shoes in general. So with that context, I wanted to round up some of the conventional wisdom and the science behind running shoe drop and how different drops change the way that we run. And I also wanted to give my take on drop and specifically my experience because I run in a ton of different shoes and run a lot of miles. So I wanted to let you know how I experience drop across the shoes that I run in. All right, let's get into it. First, let's discuss what running shoe drop is. So this is the Adidas Adizero SL here, and I'll use this as an example, but running shoe drop simply is the distance between the height of the heel in a shoe and the height of the forefoot. Stack of this one, I believe, is 36 in the heel and 25 in the forefoot, so that's a 9mm drop. Now, typically, those classic running shoes like the Nike Pegasus and daily trainers of old have around that 8 to 10mm drop. All right, now here's what the conventional wisdom says about running shoe drop. So if you think about the way that these shoes are structured, if you have a higher drop, what it's gonna do is put you up on your toes more. So it lifts your heel up, it slants your foot down, and what that does is it mimics the way that your calf and Achilles would engage when you're running, and it takes some of the pressure off of your calf and Achilles. So the conventional wisdom says that a higher drop running shoe will make it a bit easier on your calf and Achilles to run than a lower drop running shoe. That's why if you look at a lot of those lower drop running shoes, like what we get from Ultra or Topo, the conventional wisdom again says to mix them in sparingly because they will work your calf a bit more, the conventional wisdom says, than a higher drop running shoe. So conversely, if we look at a lower drop running shoe, this one is the Saucony Endorphin Shift 3. This has a 39mm heel and a 35mm forefoot for a 4mm drop. This is the lowest drop shoe that I have in my collection right now. If we look at this one, what it's gonna do is, the conventional wisdom says, work your calves a little bit more than a high drop running shoe would do, but also take some of that pressure off your hips and glutes and upper legs. So the heuristic here is low drop running shoes, work your calves, high drop running shoes, work up your legs. So you can think about it this way: high drop running shoes work the high part to your legs, low drop running shoes work the low part to your legs. All right, now here's my take on it. Based on how many times I said conventional wisdom in that first part, you could probably guess that my thoughts are a little bit different than what the conventional wisdom is here. And the reason why my thoughts are different is because running shoe foams, technology, the platforms have advanced so much in the past 10 to 15 years that a lot of that conventional wisdom about how much drop impacts our running mechanics and our experience with the shoes, while it might not be completely obsolete and outdated, it is overshadowed by these other components that are going into the shoes. Now, when I think about running in a shoe like the Adizero SL versus running in a shoe like the Rebel V3, the parts of the experience that are gonna be the most different to me do not have anything to do with the drop. And matter of fact, I rarely experience the feeling of a different drop in these shoes when I run. So with that, let me tell you the 3 elements of a shoe that really do influence my experience in running shoes and that feel a bit more important when evaluating shoes today than running shoe drop. So at a high level, those 3 factors are the running shoe foam, the rocker, and the stack. So let's compare 2 shoes with the same or similar drops so I can illustrate my point here. So in one hand here, I got the Saucony Triumph 20. This has a 10mm drop, and in the other hand here, I have the Adidas Adizero SL, and this has a 9mm drop. So extremely similar. A difference of 1mm is not material in this case. If we think about the difference in ride experience of these two at a high level, the Saucony Triumph is very plush, it's bouncy, it's one of those easy, comfortable cruisers that you can put on and just go for miles and miles without your legs getting tired. On the other hand here, we have the Adidas Adizero SL, which is a firmer, feels a lot lower to the ground, a bit snappier, not as comfortable type of shoe, but helps a lot with building strength. So in that 9 to 10mm range, these are probably as far or almost as far on the opposite ends of the spectrum as you could have. This is firm and snappy, this one is plush and bouncy. Now the big difference between these two, the stacks are actually similar as well. This one has 37 millimeters in the heel, this one has 35 millimeters in the heel. That big difference is going to be the foam. So the Saucony Triumph here is using Power Run Plus, which is a beaded TPU, very bouncy, very soft. And this one has a standard EVA. It has a little bit of a supercritical TPEE up in the forefoot here, but mostly a standard EVA. So when I think about what's informing that ride experience, that foam is going to be a big one, and then the rocker as well. You can see up here on the Saucony Triumph, there is a bit more of a rocker than we see on the Adidas, which is almost a flat platform. So when I'm running in this, because when I first started running in this, I was coming from a lot of rockered shoes, it almost felt like a zero drop shoe, or my mind was reading it as a zero drop shoe. It didn't feel like I was up on my toes, because when I was running, I wasn't getting that roll through to the rocker, which put me on my toes as I hit my stride. And then the last point is around that stack, right? That's gonna be a big difference between shoes. So if we compare two shoes with similar foam, again, let's look at the Saucony Triumph. Now let's compare it to the Rebel V3. Yes, they have different drops, but the biggest difference in the ride experience between these two is that the New Balance is extremely flexible and snappy. It has a nice ground contact feel, while the ride experience in the Triumph is muted, it's bouncy, you feel high up off the ground. Now the heels in these have a difference of over 10 millimeters in stack height. So that's gonna be the big difference in ride experience between these two, which gives the Rebel a much faster feel and the Saucony Triumph a much more isolated feel. So in my experience, those are a few of the factors that determine how a shoe works for me more than running shoe drop. And I think about what's the use case for a shoe, right? If I want to be comfortable and cushioned, I'll go for a higher stack shoe with a rocker. If I want to work on building strength and speed, I'll go for a lower stack shoe that might not have a rocker, but puts me more planted on the ground. I don't evaluate shoes by running drop basically ever. I do look at that rocker more, and I think that rocker's introduction in prominence in running shoes right now, how popular it is across basically every single speed model you see out there, and a lot of these recovery running shoe models now too, like the Ghost Max, that Triumph we looked at, that New Balance More V4, they all have those rockers. So that's gonna be a big determinant of that running shoe experience more than the drop. Now I will say that the one area where the drop still feels relevant to me is in stability. So again, if we look at the Saucony Endorphin Shift right here, it has some stabilizing elements like this plastic heel clip in the wider base, but that lower drop is also gonna make it feel much more stable. So the reason that lower drops feel stable is because your foot is more level. So when you land, your muscles in that lower leg don't have to do as much of the stabilization because you're landing on a flatter platform. If you think about a corollary, right? If you think about someone wearing a pair of high heels, they're all the way up on their tippy toes and their foot has to do a lot more work to stabilize the shoe than if you were in a flatter shoe. So there are my thoughts on running shoe drop. I don't believe it matters all that much in 2023. Let me know if you agree or disagree. This is a really interesting topic that I would love to hear your opinions on. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll make sure to keep you up to date on the latest and greatest in the world of running shoes.